Hey everyone, this is Christian Heimel, host of Press Row. Thanks so much for listening to the following broadcast, courtesy of Public House Media.
Hey, it's Baxter Colburn here from Public House Media. Did you know that we just added a store here at Public House Media? No, I'm not talking about a grocery store where you can go buy apples or bananas or peanut butter, which are all fantastic, especially when peanut butter's on all of those. Anyway, we've added a store here at Public House Media so you can not only come and represent your favorite podcast network, but also represent your favorite shows as well, too. Just go over to thephmedia.com and look in the top right corner where you'll see the button that says Store. Click on that and you can search through all of our great products. Or if you go to our Facebook page, Public House Media, you can see on the left-hand side a tab that says Store. All of our products are listed there as well too. It's the new Public House Media Store. You don't want to miss it. It is fantastic. Buy some of that great swag to support your favorite shows and to support Public House Media. Check it out today.
This is Daniel Poppy, host of How to Write Good here on Public House Media. I just want to thank you for listening to the following broadcast brought to you by Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope that you'll come check out my show, How to Write Good, the writing show that is not about writing. A new show of How to Write Good comes out every Wednesday, so don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of How to Write Good. Again, thanks for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Today's verse of the day comes from 2 Corinthians 2, verse 4. For I wrote you out of the greatest distress and anguish of heart, and with many tears, not to grieve, but to let you know the depth of my love for you. Good morning, welcome to the Verse of the Day podcast, presented by Public House Media. A little bit more normal format today. Apologies for all the craziness with the episode that you listened to yesterday, doing that from the car. But like I said, we made it work, and I'm grateful for all those that tuned in yesterday. So we are back here at our normal format. A reminder for you, of course, the show comes out every single morning, 5 a.m. Central Time. And you can also subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and numerous other places wherever you find a good podcast nowadays as well. We're over on thephmedia.com. where you can check out the store for Public House Media, as you heard there at the top of the show as well, too. Buy some great stuff to support the show. I've heard that Verse of the Day stuff is right around the corner as well, too, so you can buy your own coffee mugs and shirts and all that fun business if you're into that type of thing in just a few days, so make sure to check that out. I want to say a big special thanks to a person on Instagram that submitted today's Verse of the Day. Their username is I am but a vessel, with underscores underneath all of those. So a big thanks to them for submitting today's verse of the day. And you can do that as well, too, by going to Facebook, by going to Instagram, or sending us an email, verseofthedaypod@gmail.com. So I want to give you a little backstory on our verse today. So Paul is the author here in 2 Corinthians and in 1 Corinthians, and for most of the New Testament as a whole. 2 Corinthians specifically contains more autobiographical material about Paul than any other of his writings, which I think is remarkable because it's not exceptionally long for a book, but it still provides a pretty big overall picture of who Paul is. And the big thing is, you probably may have pulled from this verse as well too, is that Paul is clarifying in this specific verse what he wrote to the city of Corinth in his first letter. He's basically apologizing for tearing him a new one, basically, in 1 Corinthians. If you go back and read, he's very, just really goes after him and just really doesn't hold any punches, honestly. But the reason he does that is because, as he says here in this verse, he's basically saying, I'm really sorry that I wrote to you and being so mean, but I did it because I love you guys. Now, any parents that are listening, you can relate to this as well too. If you've ever punished your child, but then also felt bad for it at the same time, right? You know, your child writes on the walls with Sharpie, on a nice white wall, and your son decided to add some Sharpie to it. Or if you're in my case, you decided to drive through the garage as opposed to parking outside of it. Yeah, that was a fun time as well too. Highly recommend just driving your car right through your garage. Anyway, please don't. That was not fun. I would not appreciate the repercussions that came from that. But parents, you end up having to punish your children for things of similar nature, whether that be physically or taking something away. But you do it not because you're trying to be a bad guy, but you want them to learn, right? You're trying to set an example of good discipline, but you also feel bad kind of behind closed doors. You'll go back to your room or you go out after you're done with your punishment and you're like, gosh, I feel like the bad guy. My son's only 16 months right now, so I haven't done that too much, but it's for us as kids, though, it's confusing, isn't it, right? Because your parents are punishing you and you're taking away things, or you're not allowed to go to certain events anymore because you messed up. Remember missing out on several fun events that I was so excited about, but then I was misbehaving, and then my parents were like, nope, sorry, you're getting punished. And they'd be like, but what? And you just, you don't understand it as a kid in that moment, at that time. And it's confusing, right? Because you're like, I thought you said you loved me, and now here you are giving me a spanking, or here you are doing this or doing that. We as kids just don't understand yet the depth of what our parents are doing, right? My favorite, though, is when it comes to our friends, or we just hear this phrase used all the time, right? You know it's not going to be good when a person leads with, no offense, but... That's basically just the politically correct way of saying, I'm about to say something really bad about you or about someone, but because I said no offense, it's fine. It's not how it works. Just tossing that out there for you. It's just more of a cover-up, really. That can be really, really difficult for us to be able to deal with at times as well, too. And think about this, too, from this perspective of Paul writing to the Corinthians as well, too. We probably know people in our lives that really, really need our help, but just won't listen, right? Or just won't do anything about it. They know they've got a problem, but they won't do anything about it. For me, I've got some people that really hit it close to home. My sister-in-law, a couple of my uncles, even a few of my cousins as well, too. They know they have issues. They know they've got troubles in their life. And sometimes they'll take the appropriate steps, but then they'll fall right back, and they know it, but they just don't care. And I feel like that's even worse. It just really breaks your heart, and it's just, you're like, listen, I just want you to say yes. I care about you so much, and I love you so much. It breaks my heart. I just need you to come back and do the right thing. See, who else does this sound like, right? Who else is reaching out that people won't listen to all the time, Yeah, God, exactly right. God is reaching out to all kinds of people, and people won't listen, and people will run away, and people will cause havoc and turmoil as opposed to turning to God. Think about it from Jesus' perspective, too. When he came, people killed him. He was trying to do the right thing, and people knew he was trying to do the right thing, and people knew he was the Savior, but people were afraid, people were unbelieving, and said, nope, no way, no chance. Somebody kill him, somebody get rid of him. We don't want that. We're not ready for that. That just blows my mind. But I think that it's amazing because no matter what, people are always still going to keep after that person, that thing, that event that they want so badly. There's this lady at my church. I know her fairly well, I guess. We've known her for several months since we've been going to our church, and through various things, we found out that I used to work with her son, who isn't really a frequent churchgoer. I've only seen him there maybe a handful of times since we've been going to the church we're going to. But more recently than not, she's been coming to me because she knows that we're co-workers, and has been asking me to pray for her son. Initially, I was like, oh, great, sure, yeah, I appreciate you asking me to do that. No worries, I'll be happy to pray for your son. And then a couple weeks ago in church, talking about similar things here in 2 Corinthians, the pastor was talking about it, and then he was encouraging people to take time to just pray boldly in the seats around us, and we happen to be sitting next to this lady, and she leans over to me and she says, "Hey, would you mind if we pray for my son?" Sure. And my wife joins in, and her husband joins in as well too, and we just got this big, just powerful moment of all of us leaning in and praying for her son who's been struggling to come back to Jesus and to come back to the faith. And you never really know the power of prayer, which was that basic underlying theme of that day at church that day, about praying boldly as well too. And it was amazing too, because just a few weeks later I saw this guy at church again. I made a point to go over and see him and say hi to him and just tell him how great it was to see him at church. So it can happen. I don't necessarily know where his mind is, his heart and his battle is right now with Christ, but it was good to know that when people gathered together to pray for somebody because they loved him, that things that were starting to kind of turn towards a good thing. See, God will always love us, and his love will always find us. And we can run all we want, but God's always going to win. I know that in my personal experience, like I've shared numerous times. Jonah in the Bible knows that, and countless others know that as well too. God's always going to win. And you know what? I'm okay with that. And I think all of us should be too, because having someone that's going to go to all ends of the earth just for us, that's pretty special in my book.
You've been listening to the Verse of the Day podcast, hosted by Baxter Colburn on Public House Media. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of Verse of the Day. It comes out 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The podcast can be found by subscribing on Google Play Podcasts and wherever good podcasts are found. More information about Verse of the Day podcast can be found by going to thephmedia.com.